life after graduation, even while still in school. Now, in studio, I'm joined by Takudzwa Mathabire to discuss how students can develop personally and professionally to meet the demands of the modern workplace. Good evening and good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Botswana Television.
Thank you so much. It's my great pleasure to be here tonight.
Right.
Yep.
That's incredible. Let's start our conversation by understanding the inspiration behind the book and maybe give us the title of the book. What is the book all about and the inspiration behind it?
Okay, first of all, I'll start with the title. The book is titled Tete-a-Tete Confabulations of Success. You see that this book is inspired from my background, which you were mentioning. I'm from supply chain, field of supply chain. So you see that there we have there's so much of interdependence within supply chain, and there's need to communicate to each other. And myself being someone who's about to graduate, you see that there are opportunities which most people think there are fewer now. But you see that the gap which is there is because of networking and communication. We live in a society where we need to communicate with others in order for us to connect. And also that's where even networking comes in. So this book focuses more on communication. There are some techniques that I learned and some coming through my personal experiences in life, yeah.
All right. But why do you focus on, communication and networking skill? Why do you think this one is a niche or is overlooked?
Oh yeah, you see that communication touches different aspects around life. You see that socially in life, like right now we are even communicating, but even more from our communities that we come from, we need to always communicate with each other. And so if you do not know the techniques, if we are not deliberate in learning about it, sometimes there are some loopholes that are there which will cause us not to be who we want to be, especially when you talk about success, when you talk about you fulfilling what you want to do, your purpose in life. There's always need for that communication. We are talking about these days, you hear that people saying that there is high unemployment. But my question would be, is it that indeed we have high unemployment, or is because we are failing to connect with each other somehow? Those who have the jobs and those who need them. So you see that that's why even when networking comes in, where you deliberately connect with people. Yeah. All
right, that's incredible. Now, from your experience, what are the most common challenges, that students face when they're trying to prepare for the workforce?
Yeah, so, like what I was saying, I think opportunities have shifted. The way opportunities were before, you see that you'd finish university and maybe a company would even come to universities, for example, hunting for people. But things have changed now, and it needs now, especially if you are the person who's looking for a job, it needs you to be out there. So you see that the ways that were used back then, things have started to change right now. So that's why we are trying to do this even through authoring books and also even workshops and things like that, yeah.
All right, but how do you think communication and networking skills that we are focusing on in this book give graduates a competitive edge in the job market? Yeah,
thank you for that question. You see that to learn something, you cannot just wake up knowing. Even myself, what I've shared there is not everything that is there, continuously also learning. So you see that, but what I've shared in this book, there are some tested techniques, some principles that are there by people who are in the communication field, and some of the things that I've used even as examples in my own life, how to connect with people. For example, myself, I'm on UB radio, I'm on radio every time. So you see that there are certain things that I shared there that I used that I use when I'm on radio, how I communicate with people, how I meet new people intentionally, how I intentionally call people, how I intentionally go to events and things like that, like networking events. Then I connect to someone who maybe will be my next employer. So you see that these are techniques that we may think that everybody knows generally, but the more we talk about it, someone can also pick something that may be lacking in their life at that time, yes.
All right. But what do you think young people, especially graduates, are not able to grasp this concept of, communication and networking? You earlier on mentioned the issue of going to events and connecting maybe with your future employers. Why do you think as young people we still lag there, where we have to channel our energies to areas or places where we know this is where we want to go?
Yeah, I love giving examples. I'll give an example in University of Botswana, where I was leading the supply chain network. You see that back then, before we got to the end of the final year, I would share opportunities with fellow students to say, let's go to this networking event, let's do this, let's learn about creating CVs. But you see that when you're asking me to say that, where do we lack? You see that people, when you are in university, most people can agree with me that they are focused on just passing, getting their grades right and everything. But then they forget this part that you need to go out there and meet people. You need to go out there even to learn about your field, how it is going. So all this comes through you maybe sending an email to that company that you hope to work for and say, can I come and job shadow? Can I come and be mentored? So you see that there's been this lack because people are focused on the classroom part of it, not also focusing on the field. So that's what have been missing, the missing component, which now, when we now share principles on communication, it closes that gap.
Right. But what about the companies themselves? How can they bridge this gap? Because you are talking about, students in schools reaching out to these aspired companies. I've heard many of the times they are saying there is red tape. It's like people are just there. They don't want us to go and see what is happening in the workplaces. So what is it that companies could do to reach out to, especially those who are still in school and aspiring to work in different organizations, to make it easy for them to correlate, so that at the end of the day you don't have to hustle for the talent. You just know where to go and get talent as for the companies.
Yeah, we have tested something. They are mentorship programs. Companies, actually, I'm happy that they have started also to do that. Like communication, I understand there's communication, then there's effective communication. Effective communication is two-way. Which means, like what you are saying, it's not only on us as students to always go there. They also had to be something coming from the companies. And companies have started to take initiatives through mentorship program. Some have got trainee programs that they are running. And they've started also to come even to schools or colleges and universities to come and meet the students. Recently, on the past weekend, we had a company that came to University of Botswana to do a leadership summit. We have other industry professionals who are maybe CEOs in companies that are running also mentorship programs, especially in supply chain. And so those are some of the things, but it's still on a little scale when you look at it. So it's something that have to be inspired as well. More companies have to come and offer opportunities to the students whilst they are still in school. And companies have to put out information even because it's a hassle, or to be honest, it's a hassle sometimes to get information that this company offers this. But like what I'm saying, opportunities are there, but there is a gap where the opportunities are and where the people are. So that's where now at least teaching the student to communicate. They can then be able to get closer even if the company doesn't come to them, but themselves would have closed that gap by going to where the companies are, following them when they do events, inviting them. So you see in this book, I even shared some tips on how they can even connect, let's say through platforms that are social, like LinkedIn. Sometimes the initiative starts from you as the student.
All right, we are getting into that one right now.
Yes.
You nearly answered the question that I was about to ask for. What are the practical steps that students can take whilst they're in university to build these essential soft skills? Yeah,
so it's initiative. It's initiative, like I'm saying, I'm sure I've been saying this from the start, to say that it starts with you. You really have to be open to show yourself to the world, to go out there and even introduce yourself. I am so and so, I'm studying this. I want to be mentored by you. And you see that, so there's a way of doing it, because most of the time also something that I wanted to address in this book is because most of the time when we need something, we are open to say to someone that I need this. But that's why also I believe companies have also, even people with opportunities, they've separated themselves from people because we are always presenting the need. But in this book, I train people to make sure that they also go with opportunities to those people who are giving them opportunities. Why not give value to the company first? Why not offer that value to say that as a student, I'm coming to your company to correct A, B, C, D. Then the company opens a door for you to say, let's give you employment. So I shared on those principles in some instances where I used them, where I talked to people who are big in like CEOs, and I shared with them an idea which made us to build a relationship first. Yes, and then whatever then that comes up from that. But the more you become yourself the problem solver, is better that way than you being the one who is the problem to these companies or to anyone asking for opportunities. So be the one also holding something, not going to a company to just give them a CV. A CV says nothing. But go to a company and tell them that, okay, I've looked at what you've been doing this year, and I think with the skills that I've learned at the university, I can do A, B, C, D. So those are some of the things that are in this book. Some of the things that, the nuggets of wisdom that I've opened, some of them, they've been used by me, some by other people. Yes.
That's incredible. Now, as you're speaking, I can see that this also has to go back to personal development.
Yes.
How has your involvement in leadership roles on campus also shaped your personal and professional growth?
Thank you for that question. Since my first year at University of Botswana, I've always tried to push myself at the edge of the seat. I've tried to always network. That's why also I shared on networking. I've tried to network with the right people and the right departments, presented myself, and I started with volunteering. Volunteering is so powerful, because with volunteering, someone can easily open the door because they know that you are not asking for much. You are just coming to help them. So once a door has been opened through volunteering, there's more opportunities that came. So for me, you see that the opportunities that I first got into the university were volunteering. But I got to a point where I even got student employment, to a point where I also started to even give back to the community. At one point, I did period poverty eradication, giving center repairs. This year, I did dignified smiles, where I was giving toothbrushes. So you see that it starts with you just going for the smaller things. Impact is not, for example, having a huge followership on social media. Impact is the simple thing that you can do, maybe to your friend, to your classmate who's seated next to you in class. What can you do for them?
Right.
Yeah.
It also speaks to the issue of mindset change. Yes, young people are talking about unemployment that is rife within this country. But as you speak, I can see that most of the times it also goes back to an individual to shift the way we think and try to take it from the perspective of bearing the whole responsibility that what is it that I can do as an individual? Why is it important also, as you are in the academics also, to make sure that at the end of the day, you take the full responsibility of coming out and presenting yourself as this, beacon of, problem solving, not problems, as you've already mentioned.
Yes. So, the initiative, it always starts with you, like I said, and it doesn't really need, what you do sometimes doesn't really have to be a big move, something that will wow people. But the little steps that we make, sometimes, I want to share something that I shared here. There is, usually people want networking that is vertical, whereby you are following someone who is up there. That's the networking that most of us jump for. But we forget the networking that is at a horizontal level, the person who's just next to you. Because I've seen this when you help, for example, most people neglect, like what I'm saying, helping their own peers at school, in classroom, whether even someone in high school, just helping. That friend sometimes becomes the one who brings the opportunity. We think opportunities are in big offices. We love to post pictures with big people, to meet big people. But sometimes your communication should just start with how you communicate even with your parents at home. How do you link with your cousins and your brothers and everyone else? Do you care for your young sisters, your young siblings? That's where your communication starts, and that's where your impact even starts. So everything starts at home, starts from where you are. So sometimes we are going so far without just utilizing what is within even our communities. You see, sometimes we come from, especially those who live in the suburbs, you come from a neighborhood where you don't even greet your neighbor good morning every morning. So you see.
All right. We are towards the end of this conversation, but let's get to the title of the book. That's a big word. Maybe you can take it so that if you're at home can see, and try to explain tete-a-tete confabulation of success. What is that?
Okay, so tete-a-tete confabulation of success.
You can bring it here so that I can show viewers at home.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So tete-a-tete confabulations. First of all, the tete-a-tete part, I'm trying to it's a conversation that I wanted to have, like this one that we're having, where I viewed myself as if I'm talking to someone sitting next to me, close to me. So, and then the confabulations of success, these are conversations around success. How do we succeed in life? How do we make it in life? So it's a very open conversation with someone who is close by, or trying to draw someone closer to me and explaining to them about my experiences and what I've learned about communication. So I managed to put some things that I learned even in university there, which means even if you have never been to university, you can learn something there as well.
All right, that's incredible. Now, how is your involvement in leadership role shaped you? That one we already get to that question. But most of students mostly struggle with juggling academics with extracurricular activities. How do we combine the two so that we become, successful at both?
Okay, so I've also sometimes asked other people who are also leading to say how to, and I liked what one person, someone then answered me and said that if you see that you are struggling, if there's always a tension, if you cannot balance, it means that you are doing something that is not for you. So there's always a balance. You have to be time conscious. You have to know what is this time for. Is it time for study now, or is time to do what you have to do? So time management is very important to ensure a balance, and you have to wake up and fulfill your purpose, which means you have to let other things go. Sometimes you don't have to be, obviously you cannot win in everything. So you have now to sacrifice the things that do not matter in your life for the things that matter, which will be your academics and whatever that you are pushing at that time.
All right, we are wrapping up with this one because I've seen that is one of the important things. Boosting self-confidence and enhancing emotional resilience. We have been told that the Gen Z generation, or the millennials, are more emotional. They are talking about the mental health issues, and they are lacking self-confidence. Most of the times you will realize that someone is talented, but they are not sure of whether they can step out to the world and take and beat all the odds. Talk to that.
Yes, first of all, when we talk about the Gen Z, I would want to mention that if Gen Z are listening to me right now, this is your time. Gen Z should not say that our time is tomorrow. This is your time, because there's Generation Alpha, which is right. Generation Alpha is saying tomorrow is ours. So Gen Z should never say that tomorrow. Gen Z's time is now. But like what you said, emotional intelligence, emotional things are now very important in this day. Gen Z, care much about their emotional health, and which means we also have something that I shared in that book. We have to be so inclusive in order for us to survive well in this world era where we and acceptive as well. Because the other generations that came before Gen Z, if they are not acceptive, they may view Gen Z as perverse, but no, they are not. They are just a generation that view things in another way. And even to employers, Gen Z, if you are not learning or employers, if you are not learning something from Gen Z, you are losing a lot. And your business, if you take about 24 months without learning something from Gen Z, your business will go out of the market, because they are ruling right now as we speak. Like I said, this is the time for the Gen Z.
Most definitely, and that is how we come to the end of this conversation, Mathabire. I believe young people or students are still, are going to look for this book. Maybe lastly, you can share where we can find the book and how can young people get to read this book.
Okay, so far the book is with me, but it's going to be on most platforms, even Amazon. So to get the book, a copy of your book, you can just contact me on 74176-583. It's going to be, out there in different libraries, even online soon.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for that insight.
Thank you so much.
And that's how we come to the end of this conversation. Remember, I had in studio with me Takudzwa Mathabire to discuss how students can develop personally and professionally to meet the demands of the modern workplace. I'm coming right back with the 5 o'clock news.
We have worked through several pieces of development that Mr. President touched on, and I